The Pilate Stone, discovered in 1961 at Caesarea Maritima, represents one of the most significant finds connecting New Testament accounts to historical reality. This limestone inscription explicitly mentions Pontius Pilate as Prefectus Iudae, confirming his role as the Roman governor who presided over Jesus' trial according to the Gospels. The inscription was found during excavations of an ancient Roman theater, embedded in a stairway where it had been reused as building material. The Latin text reads Pontius Pilate, Prefectus Iudae, has dedicated to the people of Caesarea a temple in honor of Tiberius. This represents the first archaeological evidence outside of biblical and historical texts that confirms Pilate's existence and official position in first-century Palestine. What makes this discovery particularly compelling is how it validates the Gospel account's political accuracy. The inscription uses the exact title Prefectus that matches the administrative structure described in the New Testament. Biblical writers correctly understood the Roman governmental hierarchy and Pilate's specific role within it. The stone also mentions Emperor Tiberius, whose reign from 14 to 37 AD aligns perfectly with the Gospel chronology for Jesus' ministry and crucifixion. The archaeological context of the Pilate Stone strengthens its authenticity and historical value. Researchers found it in a destruction layer containing pottery and architectural fragments dating to the 1st century AD. The limestone showed weathering patterns consistent with decades of exposure before being incorporated into later construction projects. This timeline matches historical records of Caesarea's development under Herod the Great and subsequent Roman administrators. Paleographic analysis confirmed the inscription's authenticity through detailed examination of a Latin lettering style. Experts compared the character forms with other first-century Roman inscriptions found throughout the empire. The carving technique, letter spacing, and abbreviation patterns all match standard practices for official Roman monuments from Pilate's era. The stone's dimensions and formatting also conform to typical Roman dedicatory inscriptions from provincial governors. Another significant artifact connecting biblical figures to archaeological evidence is the Caiaphas Ossuary, discovered in 1990 in a family tomb south of Jerusalem. This limestone bone box bears the inscription Joseph, son of Caiaphas in Aramaic, identifying the high priest who played a central role in Jesus' trial according to the Gospels. The ossuary dates to the 1st century AD and was found in a burial cave containing multiple ossuaries from the same family. The Caiaphas Ossuary provides independent confirmation of the high priest's existence and family connections described in biblical texts. The inscription uses the same name and patronymic formula found in the Gospels, where Caiaphas is identified as the high priest who questioned Jesus before sending him to Pilate. The archaeological context places this burial in the appropriate time frame and social stratum for a wealthy priestly family in 1st century Jerusalem. Chemical analysis of the ossuary limestone revealed it originated from quarries near Jerusalem that were actively used during the Second Temple period. The carving style and decorative elements match other ossuaries from aristocratic Jewish families of the same era. Researchers used radiocarbon dating on organic residues found inside the ossuary to confirm its 1st century date, providing scientific validation for its connection to the biblical Caiaphas. The discovery location adds geographical authenticity to the find. The family tomb was located in an area south of Jerusalem that historical sources identify as a burial ground for wealthy priestly families. This matches biblical and historical descriptions of where high-ranking religious officials would have been buried according to Jewish customs of the period. The tomb's architecture and construction techniques also conform to known burial practices among Jerusalem's religious elite. These artifacts demonstrate how archaeological discoveries continue to validate the historical framework underlying biblical narratives. The Pilate Stone and Caiaphas Ossuary represent contemporary documentation that confirms the existence and roles of key figures in the Gospel accounts. Unlike literary sources that might be subject to later editing or legendary development, these physical artifacts preserve original 1st century information about biblical characters. The authentication process for both artifacts involved multiple scientific techniques to eliminate any possibility of forgery. Researchers analyzed the patina formation on both the stone and ossuary, examining how mineral deposits had accumulated over centuries of burial. Microscopic examination revealed tool marks and carving techniques consistent with ancient craftsmanship rather than modern reproduction methods. Comparative studies placed both discoveries within the broader context of first-century Palestinian material culture. The Pilate Stone's Latin inscription style matches other Roman administrative documents from the same period found throughout the Eastern Mediterranean. The Caiaphas Ossuary's Aramaic lettering and decorative motifs align with contemporary Jewish burial practices documented at sites across Jerusalem and Judea. These discoveries prove that biblical writers possessed accurate knowledge of their contemporary political and religious leadership rather than creating fictional characters centuries later. The precision with which gospel accounts describe the roles and relationships of figures like Pilate and Caiaphas reflects genuine historical awareness. The archaeological evidence validates the biblical writers' understanding of first-century Palestinian society and governance. The significance extends beyond individual character confirmation to validate the broader historical setting of biblical events. These artifacts place biblical narratives within a documented historical framework that can be verified through independent archaeological evidence. As excavations continue throughout the Holy Land, researchers expect to uncover additional artifacts that will further illuminate the historical foundations of biblical accounts. The fortress that validates biblical battles. Beyond individual artifacts, entire archaeological sites provide comprehensive validation of biblical military campaigns and their strategic foundations. The excavation at Khirbet el-Maqatir in the Benjamin Hill country has emerged as a compelling candidate for the biblical city of Ai, destroyed by Joshua according to the Book of Joshua. This identification rests on rigorous archaeological analysis using a 14-parameter screening system that evaluates geographical, chronological, and material evidence against biblical descriptions. The location of Khirbet el-Maqatir satisfies the geographical requirements described in Joshua's account with remarkable precision. The site sits in the Benjamin Hill country, exactly where biblical texts place the city of Ai in relation to other known locations like Bethel and Jericho. The topographical features surrounding the site match biblical descriptions of the terrain where Joshua's forces conducted their military campaign. Ancient road systems connecting Khirbet el-Maqatir to other biblical sites follow the same routes that Scripture describes for the Israelite advance into Canaan. Archaeological evidence reveals that Khirbet el-Maqatir possessed substantial late bronze fortifications that align with biblical descriptions of Ai as a fortified city requiring siege warfare to capture. Excavations have uncovered massive defensive walls constructed using the Cyclopean masonry technique characteristic of Canaanite military architecture from this period. The fortification system includes towers, gates, and defensive barriers that demonstrate the city's strategic military importance. These defensive structures match the biblical portrayal of Ai as a significant stronghold that posed a serious challenge to Joshua's advancing forces. The most compelling evidence comes from clear signs of violent destruction that occurred during the Late Bronze Age period, precisely when biblical chronology places Joshua's conquest. Thermal luminescence, dating of pottery fragments found in destruction layers, confirms the timing of the city's violent end. The archaeological team discovered extensive ash layers throughout the site that indicate comprehensive burning, matching the biblical account that describes how Joshua's forces burned Ai completely after capturing it. Carbonized grain and other organic materials found in storage areas provide additional evidence of sudden destruction by fire. The destruction evidence extends beyond simple burning to include signs of systematic demolition that align with biblical descriptions of conquest warfare. Archaeologists found collapsed building stones, shattered pottery, and scattered household items that suggest the city suffered complete destruction rather than gradual abandonment. The pattern of destruction appears consistent throughout different areas of the site, indicating a coordinated military assault rather than accidental fire or natural disaster. This archaeological evidence supports the biblical account of deliberate destruction following military conquest. Ceramic analysis from Khirbet el-Maqatir provides crucial chronological anchors that place the site's destruction within the time frame of Joshua's campaigns. The pottery assemblage includes distinctive late bronze eye vessel types that archaeologists can date precisely to the period when biblical chronology places the Israelite conquest of Canaan. The ceramic styles found at the site match those from other excavated Canaanite cities that were destroyed during the same historical period. This comparative ceramic evidence creates a network of chronological connections that support the biblical timeline for the conquest narratives. The strategic positioning of Khirbet el-Maqatir demonstrates why biblical accounts emphasize Ai's military significance in controlling access to the Central Hill country. The site commands important valleys and passes that ancient armies would have needed to control when advancing inland from the Jordan River. The elevation and visibility from the site would have allowed defenders to monitor approaching forces and coordinate defensive responses. This strategic value explains why biblical accounts describe the capture of Ai as crucial for establishing Israelite control over the region. Additional archaeological evidence includes weapon fragments and military equipment that confirm the site's role in ancient warfare. Bronze arrowheads, spear points, and sling stones discovered in destruction contexts match weapon types mentioned in biblical battle accounts. The metallurgical analysis of these weapons reveals manufacturing techniques consistent with late Bronze Age military technology. The distribution of weapons throughout the site suggests intense fighting occurred during the final assault that destroyed the city. The architectural layout of Khirbet el-Maqatir matches biblical descriptions of Canaanite urban planning and defensive design. The excavation revealed residential quarters, administrative buildings, and storage facilities arranged in patterns typical of late Bronze Age Canaanite cities. The gate complex includes multiple chambers and defensive features that would have controlled access while providing protection for defenders. These architectural elements provide physical confirmation of the urban sophistication that biblical texts attribute to Canaanite cities like Ai. Comparative analysis with other excavated sites strengthens the identification of Khirbet el-Maqatir as biblical Ai through multiple lines of evidence. The site's destruction pattern matches that found at other locations where archaeological evidence confirms violent conquest during the Late Bronze Age period. The ceramic assemblages, architectural features, and destruction evidence all align with patterns documented at sites throughout Canaan that experienced similar military campaigns. This comparative framework validates the archaeological interpretation and supports the biblical historical framework. The 14-parameter analysis that supports identifying Khirbet el-Maqatir as biblical Ai demonstrates how systematic archaeological methodology can test biblical claims against physical evidence. Each parameter represents a specific aspect of the biblical account that can be verified or challenged through excavation and analysis. The convergence of multiple independent lines of evidence creates a compelling case that goes beyond circumstantial correlation to establish probable identification. The Khirbet el-Maqatir excavation proves that biblical military campaigns possessed real geographical and strategic foundations supported by archaeological evidence. The site provides tangible confirmation that biblical writers understood ancient warfare, urban planning, and regional geography with remarkable accuracy. This archaeological validation extends beyond individual artifacts to encompass entire settlement patterns and military strategies described in Scripture. As excavation techniques continue advancing and new analytical methods emerge, researchers gain increasingly sophisticated tools for examining the relationship between biblical accounts and archaeological reality.